welcome back to Learning to Glow. Thank you for being here. I'm your host, Jess. Today we have an amazing conversation with Courtney, who is an acupuncturist. She earned her degree in traditional Oriental medicine at a top-ranked school in the nation. It's the Pacific College of Oriental Medicine. She received additional training abroad in China at the Liaoning TCM University. After that, she found her passion in cosmetic acupuncture, learning how to help others age gracefully. She has multiple certifications for easing the signs of aging by improving skin tone and nourishing the body as a whole. We talk about acupuncture, the differences between Eastern medicine and Western medicine. We dive into facial acupuncture for aging concerns, which I loved talking about this. I had never done it before. We dive into other non-invasive treatments that are really highly effective as well, and how it can be used as a Botox alternative. I love hearing her thoughts on Botox. We talk about what is very popular right now, which is early Botox, like in your 20s as a preventative measure, and her thoughts on that. She has a practice in Huntington Beach, California. I will have all of her information in the show notes with links. She has an Instagram. It's amazing. So I highly recommend that you check her out. She's a wealth of knowledge. I hope you enjoy this interview with Courtney. Without further ado, here it is. Hi, Courtney. Welcome to the show. And thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, Jess. Thanks for having me.
So happy to have you. I just wanted to start by having you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, what you do, all that good stuff.
So I am an acupuncturist. I practice in California in Huntington Beach and specialize in cosmetic acupuncture. I've been working in the cosmetic field, I think for about 6 years now, I want to say, and have been in practice for a little over 8.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. I'm so excited to talk about all this. I really want to start by, talking about acupuncture first and kind of Eastern medicine and the philosophies and, any insight that you have for us for people who are maybe new to it and maybe even a little bit versus like Western medicine.
Okay, perfect. So I always think like with Eastern and Western medicine, we're looking at preventative care with Eastern medicine and whole body care. Western medicine tends to be really symptomatic focused, and they really like to isolate everything and just treat specific symptoms. Eastern medicine is going to look at you as a whole unit. And I think where I really see this a lot in practice is I will, I have my like thorough intake or what I imagine is thorough. It often happens where people will forget to like mention a certain symptom that they're experiencing, whatever. So they'll be coming in for back pain. And then let's say 6 to 10 visits down the road, they're like, oh yeah. And you know what? I noticed I've been sleeping better. Is that like something? I'm like, well, you didn't tell me you weren't sleeping well, but it's one of those things that as we just work on the body, we're balancing everybody out as a whole. So everything just starts to feel better.
That is incredible. That is so incredible. I love that one of the big differences is looking at our body and our, the human as just, it's one piece. It's not like we're not just going to a heart doctor to see, the specialist for the heart. It's like we're looking at the whole body, which I think is so different. And I love that about it. Can you kind of talk about acupuncture more specifically and like what it is, for people who are brand new to it?
Okay, so acupuncture specifically is the placement of teeny tiny needles, which I hate to even use the word needle, but I wouldn't know what else to call, maybe a pin or something like that. But we're placing them in specific points on the body in order to restore balance. So the whole like theory behind acupuncture at its most basic form is that we are manipulating chi and blood in the body. So chi is going to be what I like to equate to the physiology of the body, the why. So like why we're breathing, why the heart is beating, the blood is flowing, all that kind of stuff. And then blood is all of our physical substances. So it's stuff that we can actually see and touch. So we're working to essentially regulate out the body with acupuncture by putting these little pins in specific spots on the body. It goes like way more in depth into that, but that's like my like elevator pitch.
I love it. Well, I have to ask this. I feel like this is a good time to ask, does it hurt? Because I know people are going to want to know that.
Yes and no. I mean, I shouldn't even say yes. Sometimes you feel a sensation. So there will be sometimes when we put a needle in where you do get like a little poke. And I always let people know like something sharp touched you. So it's equivalent to that. Like it's literally just a little poke. A lot of times though, you don't feel anything at all. And if you do get that little poke, it's very quick that it will dissipate. So most of the time I'll be pulling needles out of people and they're like, wait, there was one there. You had one there. There was one here. I'm like, yep. Stick them in all these different places. So generally speaking, no, it's very pain-free, very comfortable. A lot of times I come back in the room and people are passed out. They're like snoring, taking a fat nap, like super relaxed. So it's actually a very comfortable process to have.
So I've had acupuncture. I was introduced to it when I was in my, I would say like mid-20s.
Awesome.
And I had a lot of issues and we were treating, more than one thing when I was seeing this acupuncturist. But I actually used acupuncture when I was trying to get pregnant.
Awesome.
So I did use it for fertility. And then after I was pregnant, I actually used acupuncture to get my pregnancy going or my labor.
Yes.
So it's funny because I remember I've had, acupuncture off and on for many years. That was the only time where I felt like it hurt. And it was because it was like this one spot on my toe, my little baby toe.
Yeah.
And he really got in there. And I was like, oh, okay. Like I'm the same, like what you described with your clients, like they pass out. It's such a like relaxing experience. It's one of those things where they leave and I'm out too. Like I just feel like such a relaxed state when I'm receiving acupuncture. But as far as my acupuncture for the labor to start, I literally started like a couple hours after that.
That's
so
awesome.
I did it for both of my children, both my pregnancies. There is anybody who thinks that acupuncture doesn't work. It works. So that was like a really cool experience. But I'd like to know, like, other than the things that I've mentioned, like what is another common health issue that people go and get acupuncture for?
I would say pain. Like that's definitely the like number one reason why people call me. One thing that I am wanting to like spread more awareness about for it is like the post-COVID loss of taste and smell. There are so many people, myself included, where we had that happen and then it just kind of never really came back to full fruition and stuff. And I actually was in the process of taking a course where we had a 5-day clinic intensive with doing some of the facial stuff. And I noticed after that 5 days of care, back to back to back, where we were like, just going to town on each other. So it's more than what you would actually normally get in a treatment. It was restored. So,
oh my gosh.
Yes. So I'm like back to full functioning again with taste and smell, which like, it can't even explain like the emotional aspect of it where it's kind of depressing when you can't taste and smell. So yeah, definitely want like PSA, go see your acupuncturist if that is happening. It's definitely, and even like the brain fog, all that kind of stuff. It's great for that. But otherwise, in terms of like common stuff, absolutely pain, insomnia, fertility. What else is that? I mean, I think those are like the top ones, but really you can come in for anything. I mean, I even tell people like, we can't heal broken bones, but we kind of can. Like it's, we're not going to be able to set the bone into place, but we can expedite the healing process with that kind of stuff. Like I always encourage people that are having surgery to come in before the surgery so that your body is prepared for it. You're in a more relaxed state and we build up that chi and blood in your body so that you can handle having the loss of energy and the loss of fluid or blood when you get cut open. And then for the healing process, I typically see healing times are cut down by about 50% when you come in after having surgery. So it's so fun. Like the patients always come back after their check-in with their doctor and, they're like, oh, my doctor was so stumped. They don't know like why I'm healing so fast. And they just keep saying like, we'll just keep doing whatever you're doing. I'm like, tell them it's acupuncture. Like, tell them, don't let them be in the dark. Let them know.
I had no idea about the surgery. And that's so wonderful for post-COVID. That is something I've never heard before. That's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and even like with pregnancy and labor too, like a lot of women end up having to have C-sections, either electively or emergency, right? Mm-hmm. And whether it's postpartum because of vaginal delivery or postpartum because of C-section, acupuncture is great for that. We're going to be regulating the system, building the blood back up and getting you back into that like rest and digest mode with the nervous system that like, I know for me, at least postpartum, I was like straight up fight or flight. I'd like, oh, who is this human? What's going on? Like kind of freaked out. I think, just the whole experience and loss of, fluids and stuff through the process. And then your care is so focused on the baby that like your self-care really starts to fall off in those first few months. So I feel like a great way to help take care of mom afterwards and help with healing, so that you just feel better, because some people feel great postpartum. I didn't.
I wish I would have known about this postpartum. Yes.
Yeah.
That sounds incredible. What a great resource for people who are dealing with that and the self-care aspect. I mean, I think I would have liked to go just so I could go take a nap too. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
but there's so many other benefits to it. I love that.
Yes.
I really like to talk about the facial acupuncture in
Yeah.
particular today. Tell us a little bit about it and also like some of the benefits for
Okay.
the facial acupuncture.
Facial acupuncture, the way that it works, like I think that's a good place to start there is with like what we're actually trying to do. So the best way that I can explain it, which is kind of a little bit goofy, but as we age, our muscles essentially kind of start to turn into beef jerky. I know that's like a little bit graphic, but I'm a graphic person I'm a visual learner. So that's kind of how it works for me in my brain. But if you imagine our muscles turning into beef jerky, so they're getting, kind of dried out and starting to shrink and sort of come together, the skin is attached to that. So if you start to imagine what skin would look like layered on top of beef jerky, you can think of, what people look like as they're aging, wrinkles start to set in. And especially if there's certain muscles that you're using all the time. So if you're this person that's like constantly reading and scowling and doing that kind of thing, or, there's a lot of people that have these like beautiful laugh lines because they're always smiling and laughing all the time. When you're using these muscles over and over and over again, just like any muscle in the body, it starts to shorten. And it takes the skin with it. It's attached, right? So when that starts to happen, you get these wrinkles that set in deeper, deeper, deeper. So that's kind of like the pathology essentially of like what happens with wrinkles. So with acupuncture, we are trying to essentially tenderize the meat.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I know that's like kind of a funky way to put it, but
That's great.
what we're doing, we're putting needles in these specific points in the body that are going to be hitting muscle motor points that are going to help actually reset the muscle and relax it. And then also by causing a micro trauma to the area, the body sends its repair mechanisms of, I almost said chi and blood, of collagen and elastin, but also chi and blood. So it sends collagen and elastin in there. We get increased circulation through the area. So it actually ends up flushing out if there's any stagnation, like if there's lymph stagnation or you get like the dark circles, any of that stuff where things like aren't really moving through the face, this is going to help flush that out and get everything like nice and plump and happy looking, get the muscles to sit flat and kind of rest more. So I think too, like kind of a fun, not so fun thing, but if you look at people who have Bell's palsy, if they're older and have wrinkles, you will see that the side that is affected with the Bell's palsy is wrinkle free. Totally.
Totally.
And, so we're kind of working a little bit towards that state, but still obviously want functionality in the face so that we can, contract on both sides. But that's what we're working towards, is to get everything just like plump and nourished and soft and smooth as much as possible. So, through the use of acupuncture, herbs, I always recommend everybody be on collagen, hydration, all that kind of stuff is going to just factor into everything. But yeah, that's essentially what we're doing, is massaging the meat.
That's very descriptive. I love it. I think that's super helpful. So obviously some of the benefits would be soften fine lines and wrinkles. Are there any other benefits that you see like cosmetically, topically with facial acupuncture?
Oh, absolutely. So definitely swelling and puffiness, that tends to respond really quickly if you have any like fluid accumulation that's going on. Dark circles are another one that tend to flush out relatively quickly. Evening of skin tone and just like pigment in general, people that have like rosacea or any of those like, pigment issues where like they tend to be a little more red or blotchy or any of that kind of stuff, it really just flushes everything out and gets everything just more even and smooth and happy. Just makes your skin looking happy.
That's amazing.
And some lift too. Like sagging's another one. The sagging definitely takes longer generally. So, again, it's going to be like how progressed is it, but tends to take a little bit more, but you can even help with that, which is pretty cool. The only areas that we kind of run into roadblocks with cosmetic acupuncture is going to be like fighting the natural aging process of like either fat falling down if that's already happened. So that's somebody that's coming to me that's in their 60s plus. They most likely are going to have the, just our natural fat pads that we have in our face. Gravity exists, so it's going to start to fall down. I can't really move anything back up to where it was. But if you come in more in your 20s, 30s, 40s, we can help keep it from falling. Also, as we age, our bone density just starts to, dissipate. So I can't bring bone back.
Right.
Um, so yeah, that'd be something too. If there's anything that's like kind of hollowing out or anything like that, like I can't necessarily do anything to plump that back up. But other than that, like really any facial concerns, acne is another really big one. And then the facial paralysis stuff. So working with people with Bell's palsy, Ramsay Hunt, any of that kind of thing, stroke patients, they all respond really well. I actually just had a Bell's palsy patient that I was like super stoked to work with. She came in very quickly after onset, which I always recommend, like the sooner the better. If for those who don't know, with Bell's palsy, it's one side of the face that gets affected where you're getting drooping because the muscles are no longer able to contract. So a lot of times these people, they can't blink their eyes, so they sometimes have to wear an eye patch. Their eyes always like leaking. They have to manually shut their, open and close their eye. It's hard to eat, swallow, chew, all that kind of stuff. Sipping out of a straw, it's a pain in the butt. Some people will never get fully recovered. If they leave it as is, it takes about 6 months to get to where most people won't notice that it happened. They get full recovery. But yeah, I talked to some people where they're like, yeah, I just noticed, this happened years ago and I noticed it still is just a little different. Not that anybody else would notice what they do. 4 weeks, 6 treatments, 4 weeks, she's 100%.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
That is a great result.
Yes. Yeah. Really great. And her husband was stoked too, because she was actually kind of funny. She wasn't so worried because she's like, I don't really look in the mirror. And like, I get to the point that, once everything was functioning, it wasn't all the way, but she didn't quite notice it. She's like, but I can tell my husband's freaked out.
Oh my gosh. That is
he's seeing it.
Oh my gosh. That is so amazing. I love that story.
Yes, definitely come in soon.
Yeah. So that's good for everybody to know. So with your treatments and your facial acupuncture, do you do any other type of like rejuvenating treatments or complementary, like when it comes to cosmetic and facial type treatments?
Yes. So microneedling is definitely a big one. That one's not going to work on the muscles. So that one's going to be just in that dermal layer, or just in the skin. But it is really great for pigmentation, fine lines, wrinkles, and dark spots. So that one's really great too for people that just tend to have more wrinkles on the face. Really neck, décolleté.
Yeah. Potato.
Yes. Yeah. So working with that kind of thing. But yeah, if you're wanting to work on more of the sagging stuff, it's not going to touch that. And then facial cupping and facial gua sha. And then with my treatments, depending on what they're coming in for, but most of us have this like forward head posture kind of thing, or we're like doing this sort of, where like your chin's really forward and your head's tilted back. We're slouching, right? So that is also going to cause the muscles in the face to be pulled in areas that we don't want them to be pulled. So we might get less definition in our jaw, sagging, get the little jowls, any of that kind of stuff. It can also affect forehead lines. So I'll actually work on people's backs sometimes too.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay.
You wouldn't think. Yes, that one. And people, you love it because especially a lot of us just hunch anyway. And so to get that opened up, you work through the chest, work through the back, and really work. It's not just the face. You want to get the whole upper body aligned. It's really fun. Yeah.
That kind of goes back to like how acupuncture and Eastern medicine, that's a great example of how they look at not just the face. We're not just treating the face here. There's other factors that we need to consider when we're treating a certain like condition. Can you talk a little bit more about facial cupping for people who don't know what that is? I know it's become a little bit more popular, but I have never personally been to a place where I could get facial cupping. So let us know a little bit about that.
So facial cupping, it's the same mechanism as body cupping, but we're just going way less intense with it. So we're not trying to pull up those marks like you would see on, like we're seeing on the athletes and stuff where it looks like a squid attacked them. Do not want that. Nobody's going to be coming back if you put those spots over their face. So what, again, it goes back to the same thing of just trying to like tenderize the meat essentially. So it's that one I kind of think of like kneading a loaf of dough, or like a loaf, I guess it wouldn't be bread, right? It would be dough. You're not going to knead bread, but so you're really just kneading the muscles. So it's really small cups that are used, and you just place them over the face and can drag them along the face to affect whatever muscles you're trying to affect. It's great for lymph and fluid movement through the face. So I always try to drag everything out and down, which is like a great just generalization for lymph stuff. You always want to go out and down. Yeah, it's a really nice one. I started that. Did that answer the
No,
question?
that it totally did. And I'm a big fan of the facial gua sha. So,
Yes.
can you describe that a little bit for people who don't know? I mean, that's something that I've been using on my face for years now. And it's like one of my favorite tools. I
Yeah.
would love it even more if somebody else gave it to me. You know, it's fun to do it on yourself at home, but tell us how you use it in a treatment room.
I use it in a lot of different ways. So same thing. I always get the neck with everybody. We're all staring at our phones. So, let's be real. We definitely need to hit the front of the neck. It's always tight on everybody. That one again is another one that you can use it more aggressively and pull up those marks. So the Shaw marks of gua sha, like we're saying, the Shaw part at the end is describing the marks that come up with cupping. So when you're doing gua sha, it's a scraping method. In the facial ones, you're using a tool that's going to be a little more rounded. So again, we're not trying to pull up any of that Shaw on the face or like the bruising. But once again, we're trying to just flush out any stagnation in the area, get fluid movement and lymph movement and muscle tone, and trying to remind the muscles like, oh, we're going this direction with certain things. But that one I've found, especially with the lymph stuff, and like brightening of the complexion, I think it's really fun. I've seen some people do before and after pictures where they'll just do like one side of the face. And then you can compare the two. It's insane. The difference that you can see with it. It's like somebody that's awake and then somebody that just got back from like Burning Man or something, like thrashed.
It's like such an instant result.
Yes.
And I love that. I think that's like one of my favorite treatments for sure.
Yeah.
And as far as like what you use, you're using all of these amazing modalities and equipment. Tell me about what kind of skincare you would use and like how does that complement what you're doing in the treatment room?
So any of my skincare that I use, I am very, very, very particular about. I do layer skincare on and then needle. So it's very important to me to make sure that there is nothing toxic in anything that I'm using. So I really gear towards stuff that is either like strictly herbal, where these companies will grow their own herbs in America, dry them, grind them into powders, and then I have the powders and I add liquid into it in order to make a mask or a cleanser. The products that you have are super clean, so I love using those. It's stuff that I know that I'm not adding to the problem, essentially. So I do work with detoxes with people as well, and just in kind of in general, talking with people about this kind of stuff. But there's toxins that we get in our system through everything. So the more we can like replace that with stuff that doesn't have toxins, the better. And part of the reason for doing that, other than just like overall feeling good, it's skin health. Like if your body is like has it overloaded with too many toxins in it, a lot of times it will come out in the skin. So that's where you will see these things like eczema, rosacea, acne, like all these kinds of conditions that people are like, I don't know how to fix this. And it's a lot of times it's just toxic overload, which kind of sucks because a lot of it's like the fun stuff that we want to be having. But in skincare, it doesn't have to be. I mean, you can get such amazing skincare that is clean and effective and smells amazing and feels the same as the other stuff or even better. So yeah, I'm super duper picky. I love using your products in the treatment room. Everybody loves them. They smell great. And
thank you so much.
They feel good. They just absorb really nice. Everybody's just like all dewy when they walk out and look all fresh.
Oh yeah. I and especially after having such an amazing treatment alongside that. I mean, speaking of toxins, it's one question that I get asked by my clients all the time. I would say it's one of my most frequently asked questions. Okay. They ask me, what do you think about Botox? Yes. What do you use Botox and what do you think of it? And after the toxic overload conversation that we're having, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Botox.
So personally, not a fan, which I'm sure it doesn't come as too much of a surprise. I definitely am one of those people that likes to get everything from the land as much as possible. We can just get so much from plants. It's pretty amazing. But I have just seen some concerns with Botox. There are, there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong with it. And I feel like it's something that isn't really being discussed all that often. And I was working down in San Diego, just recently moved back up to Orange County, and was working with a lot of girls that were in their like mid-20s, and found out, because just through conversation, found out that a lot of them were getting Botox and they didn't even have a stinking wrinkle yet. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, why why are you doing this? And I finally asked them, like, well, preventative. They said that, to prevent having any wrinkles coming in, then, you just don't make the face. And so then the wrinkle doesn't happen, which 100%, I agree with that. That's the exact same method as what I'm trying to do, just different way of getting there. Like we have the same end result, but we have different ways of getting there. So my big concerns with botulinum or Botox, any of that kind of stuff, is that you are injecting an active neurotoxin into your body, and especially in your face. That's
near the brain. Yeah, it's literally it's it's like right there.
Yes. Yeah. So that just raises a lot of red flags for me just off the bat without even looking into it. And then you start looking into it and you see that there are some people that are having adverse reactions to things. Common adverse reactions are going to be drooping of the eyelid. So eyelid and eyebrow. So, everything's going to be just kind of like dropping and falling down there. From what I understand, a lot of that just has to do with technique for the most part, or, that's kind of what I'm hearing out there, is that people that are just newer at providing Botox, it could just be that they had wrong technique, and that's why that's happening. It does tend to resolve, but you do run the risk of death. I mean, that is an actual listed side effect for any of these, Botox, Dysport, any of that kind of stuff. I don't know that I would die over risk death over a wrinkle.
Yeah. I think the problem too, a lot of times, is that this isn't something that's really talked about when you say go in to get your service. You go in, you have your appointments for Botox. I don't think this is something that your technician is like telling you all the side effects. I don't know if people are fully aware what the label does say, because you don't see the box. You just see your technician, your nurse, with the needle. There's no real information there as far as maybe possible side effects and things like that. So I always tell people to really look into the research and do your own. Make sure you're armed with knowledge. If you have any doubts, look into it. And there are Facebook groups with people who have had, it's called botched Botox. And some people just have, like you said, a technician maybe had a bad technique, but also people are having, reactions to the actual substance. So it is a real risk. And you have to weigh pros and cons in life of what is more important. I just think it's important for people to be informed, because just to make the best decision that you can. I love that what you're doing is really like a Botox alternative, because we're working the same way, except we're not injecting a toxin into our bodies.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and same. I always encourage people with any of this kind of stuff, like look for the product insert. Like, you can Google things up the wazoo and all the forums and stuff and see things, which, it's good getting feedback from people, but go ahead and look at the product insert. Look at what they are required to list as side effects. Like when I was, bopping through PubMed and stuff, one of the things I pulled up was a study done by the FDA, and they had an online, form for people to report adverse events. And they found significant, hold on, I wrote it down. They had, what did they? Evaluated proportional reporting ratios and relative odd ratios for facial paralysis and botulism. So systemic botulism, which that, could be deadly depending, otherwise you're looking at like facial weakness, difficulty talking, difficulty eating, that kind of thing. It's not something you want to mess with. And then unfortunately they didn't give the numbers, so I was a little upset about that, but they said that all drugs had at least one reported case of death. And at least one. So that was something too that I'm like, well, how many people were in this study? How, what are our percentages? I think those are better to look at. But when they say at least one, well, okay, was that then 2, or was that 200 or 1,000, or, which it's rare. So I don't, I'm not trying to like Botox means death. Like,
right.
I know a lot of people that have Botox and they're just fine. But, just again, something to just be aware of, that like that is a possibility. And again, it's one of those things too, that you start using this stuff, the more that you're using it, the more you're going to have to use it. So then it becomes this thing that you're going in more regularly. It's not as effective. And that starts to so when you're in your 20s, when you don't have wrinkles, now imagine when you're in your 40s or 50s, when they do start to kick in, how often you're having to go in, how much that's increasing your risk of having an adverse reaction or adverse event to any of these things. That kind of starts to get scary. And then I also think too, if you're not exercising the muscle, right? So the way that Botox works is by killing the signal, the nervous system signal to the muscle so that the muscle can't contract and it lays flat. So if the muscle's just laying flat for 20 years on your face, like what is that going to be doing,
So
down the road?
that is a question that I had about that new, it's really a newer marketing technique or tactic, sorry, of let's get the 20-year-olds in here for preventative Botox. And I did wonder, like, what are the repercussions of starting at 20 years old? I've seen online, there are girls who are like, well, I don't really think I need it, but maybe I do because I see so many other girls going in and getting it,
Right.
and they feel the pressure to start. And, even people more my age are like, well, I mean, do I need it? Because I feel like everyone else is doing it. And so maybe I need it too, where, I actually have quite a few friends in their 40s who don't get Botox. And frankly, the reason they don't get it is because they don't need it. They have an oilier skin type, just less wrinkles, really beautiful skin, and they don't need it. But then the fact that they're asking you, well, I feel like maybe I should start because it's just kind of what everyone does. And
Right.
also, what is going to happen to the skin and the muscle of the 20-year-olds starting so young, and what does that mean for them,
Right. I mean, at this point, I feel like it's a little early to know for certain, but where my brain starts to go on that is atrophy with stuff. I mean, this is one of those things where if you don't use it, you lose it 100,000,000%. You think of somebody with frozen shoulder, for example, where that thing's stuck in place, you start to atrophy, and you will notice that, if they can't use their right shoulder, it's going to be significantly smaller than the left shoulder. So everything starts to shrink up. And like we were talking about earlier, it's going to take the skin with it. So at some point, the Botox is not going to be effective. This is kind of where my mind goes, right? Like where I just think like, okay, at some point they're going to hit their threshold where this isn't really going to work that much for them anymore. They're looking at surgery if they want to be doing something like that. If they're wanting to maintain that like 20-year-old face when they're in their 40s or 50s, like at that point, the acupuncture stuff, it's fantastic with everything. But again, I'm not working miracles here. It's not the same thing as a facelift. So that's where I would imagine these women would end up, is that they would want to be getting a facelift because they wouldn't be happy with the way that they're looking at that point. And I also think too, just kind of on like a psycho-emotional level, like you don't get to age with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that I think it's important. Like wrinkles, they're not a bad thing. And I always like to let my patients know that too. And like some people will come in and kind of beat up on themselves about things. And it's like, well, we earned these, like, especially the laugh lines, like those are something to be really proud about. But it's like, aging is not a bad thing. We can pump the brakes on it. We can make sure that your skin, you're always glowing. And I've got this one patient that comes in, and she actually has not been seeing me. But she just started coming in for knee pain, but I think she's in like her 70s or 80s. She has got amazing skin, but this chick she's great exercise, nutrition. She rests all the time. She's got a good skincare regimen, and she looks fantastic. Like you would not know, you'd think she's in her 50s. Like it's very impressive.
That speaks a lot to what all of those other things, and combined, with treatments that are proactive.
Yes.
What can happen with that? And, good nutrition and exercise and all of that. That is, that's something that we are going to be talking a lot more about on my podcast, because it is not just one thing. Right. I have a lot of people who come to me because I sell skincare. This is what I want, but there's more ways to get at it. And there's so many like more natural, safer ways to do it as well. And, we've talked a lot about, some of the other more natural treatments that you perform. Is there anything else that you would say we can start achieving healthier looking skin? What else can we do? And you just mentioned a few things, but what else can we do to make sure that we're having that glowy skin in a more natural way?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that to me is where like, let's market this to the 20-year-olds.
For sure.
And like, this is something, it's how you take care of your body. So I immediately go to the gut. Like gut health is going to be a huge thing with how it blooms. I love to use that word, but how it blooms onto the face, right? Because we can look at it that way, but just overall health in general. So in Chinese medicine, they love their little microsystems with stuff, like a foot reflexology, hand reflexology, the auricular acupuncture, all that jazz. So they have one on the face as well. So what's really fun with with my job and my education is that I can look at people and be like, oh, you probably have like this and this going on. It's kind of fun.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's kind of, just, and if they don't, then maybe they've had little twinges of it, or if they continue on this path, then they probably will. So if you know what these maps are and you know how to take care of your body in a certain way and keep your systems, in check and everything feeling good, nothing's going to manifest. Like the whole like premise behind acupuncture is catching things early. And we have our little ways of doing that. Part of it is through questioning the patient and seeing what little things are starting to pop up, whether it's, they have an irregular bowel movement, it's an every other day thing instead of a daily thing. Like that to us is a clue, or I wake up at 2 a.m., but then I fall back asleep. Clue, but then we can also look at the face and go, oh, around my period, every single time, zit right here. Clue. So it's catching stuff that early on and making those adjustments, through the use of acupuncture, herbs, nutrition, lifestyle, all that kind of stuff to get the body in balance, and it will flourish onto the face. I think a great example is myself. I used to get acne. I'd a pimple every day, a new one every single day. And I grew up with orange juice and smoothies for breakfast every day. And I go to acupuncture school and was talking with one of my teachers about it. And they were like, why don't you try like a month, just no smoothies, no juice for a month. Just try it and do, something warm in the morning, whatever. It cleared up my skin.
Wow. And you literally, no one can see your face right now, but your skin is so gorgeous. So yes, that is incredible.
Yes. Yeah. So again, looking at the gut, and like, that's something too, like everybody's super stoked on smoothies and juices and all that kind of stuff. I was like, no, you want to eat the warm food. So, I guess I'm giving you a very roundabout answer here. So things that we can be doing, exercise is going to be huge. If you are stagnant, then that means your blood is stagnant. The lymph system that is responsible, it's our, like our sewage system, essentially. It does not have any way to pump itself. So like our circulatory system has the heart, right? The lymphatic system does not have that. So it requires exercise in order to move. It get a little bit through, being next to the vessels, it kind of does it, but exercise is going to be the big thing. So move your body, whether that's, walking, running, whatever, just move, get moving, people.
I love it.
Warm foods is another one. So in Chinese medicine, we see the spleen as our main digestive organ. The stomach is an accessory one, actually. And the spleen likes to be warm and it likes to be moist. So if you're putting stuff in there that's either super hot or raw and cold, you are going to be damaging the spleen. So that's going to look like raw foods, salads, smoothies, pressed juices, raw vegan diet, that kind of thing. That's going to damage that. It can show up on the face or in the gut. Also, when you're looking at super spicy stuff, or these people that just exist off of chilies, that can damage the spleen as well. And then greasy. So, it's all the fun foods, unfortunately.
Well, you really got me with the cold drinks, because I know. So one of my favorite things is iced coffee.
Yeah.
And even I know. I it's like winter and I'm wearing like 3 jackets in my house, but yet I'm grabbing the ice and I'm putting it in my cup and I'm like, I know this is wrong. Like I shouldn't be doing this every day. I think I need to cut back and like add my warm coffee more, even if I just don't go cold turkey, because iced coffee, like that's all the rage. Everybody loves iced coffee.
Oh, they're delicious.
It's so good. It's so good. But I think, it's one of those things. Doesn't it also make your body, does it make it work harder to digest as well when you're putting something cold into your body, or no?
Yeah. So I've heard that. That's not necessarily something that is taught through like Chinese medicine, or Eastern medicine, that they say that it makes it work harder. The verbiage that they use is that it damages the spleen.
Okay.
So it's more that instead of it being happy and functioning, it starts to make it limp along. So, kind of which one goes where. But
that's more motivating to cut back on the when you put it like that, definitely.
You can do it.
I know. I'm like, okay, maybe tomorrow I will make a warm coffee, because I do know, there are things that we do in my house. And I love that you talked about gut health. It's so huge, because my son actually had the worst case of eczema and was cleared when we helped fix his gut. Like, it just amazing. And like, that's when we discovered bone broth. So every day as a family, we would sip on bone broth. And I do feel you literally can, when you put these things into your body, sometimes it's like, you can feel it, like the effects and how good it makes you feel. So I love that you talk about that, because I feel like that is such a big mystery when a lot of people come to me, as an esthetician. I've had so many people with just these mystery skin conditions. They really don't know why they're having them. And so much of this stems from the gut.
Absolutely.
So, and it's not something that, you can't just all the time fix it by throwing a skincare product at it.
Right.
There's more to it sometimes.
Yes.
So I love it. I think this has been so amazing. I love all of your knowledge, and thank you so much for sharing it all with us. But I think a lot of people are going to want to come and see you for some of these amazing treatments. So please tell us where we can find you. I know you're in Huntington Beach, but let us know where to find you, like what your socials are, your website, all that good stuff. And I'll make sure to link it all in the show notes too.
Awesome. Thank you. So it's Courtney Rose Acupuncture. And I'm in Huntington Beach, kind of closer to like the Seal Beach area, or like Bolsa Chica wetlands. So I'm at 5200 Warner Avenue, Suite 101. And then all of the like handles of everything is just Courtney Rose Acupuncture or CourtneyRoseAcupuncture.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll make sure I put that. So check out the show notes if you guys want links. And this was such a pleasure. You're a wealth of knowledge. I really appreciate all of your insight, and I'm so happy that you were here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please subscribe and review so we can reach more people who want to learn to glow alongside us. See you next time.